You are Locked On Pistons Postcast, part of Locked On Sports Detroit on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Now that's the way you bounce back and start a road trip. How about that? The Detroit Pistons go on the road and beat the Phoenix Suns 133-125. A huge bounce back win on the road, an all-star type performance from Cade Cunningham, and the Pistons are able to withstand Kevin Durant's season high 43 points. We'll talk about all that and, of course, our studs and duds. That's coming up on a Locked On Pistons postcast. I am your host, Jake Riepma. You can follow me on Twitter at Jake_Riepma, formerly with 97.1 The Ticket, the Detroit Pistons, a flagship radio station, now with Locked On Sports Detroit, and couldn't be more fired up to be with you, which is your reminder. Make sure you subscribe to Locked On Sports Detroit. We've got live post-game shows for you all throughout the calendar year. Locked On Pistons postcast, Locked On Lions postcast, Locked On Wolverines postcast, and Locked On Tigers postcast. And it all happens here on Locked On Sports Detroit, which is also a friendly reminder that your favorite podcast now has a newsletter. That's right. Introducing the Locked On Pistons daily newsletter. It's your one-stop for ultimate team and league coverage, and it's delivered right to your inbox. All you have to do is sign up for free right now at LockedOnDaily.com. That's LockedOnDaily.com. And how about you start your day with the all-new free Locked On Pistons newsletter? Doesn't get much better than that now, does it, my friends? And don't forget, today's episode of the Locked On Pistons postcast is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Don't forget, with FanDuel, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you can get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Just visit FanDuel.com to get started. Now, a shootout type of game, and that's not normally a game that bodes well for the Detroit Pistons, but tonight it was. Offensively, they were alive and well. They were thriving, and each and every quarter, they were able to withstand the Phoenix Suns' best run. Because, make no mistake about it, when you have a prolific player like Kevin Durant, and he goes off for a season-high 43 points. Obviously, it's going to be a challenge to win that type of ball game. But here we are. Look at the balanced attack from the Detroit Pistons. 28 for Cade Cunningham. We'll talk a little bit more about his all-star performance later in the program in the second segment. And as always, it's always the case on a Pistons postcast. But let your voice be heard. Let me know what you think in the comments. And great to have Jaden Ivey back in the lineup. He finishes with 20 points. He was +6 for the evening, 4 of 6 from the long line. So some helpful three-pointers there. And how about, speaking of three-pointers, you got to give a lot of credit to Malik Beasley off the bench with 18 points and a volume shooter. We know that's part of his game, but 5 big triples for MB5. Good to see him contributing as well. And all 5 starters in double figures. We talked about some of the lapses in that department with the loss to the Utah Jazz, but here we are, and it was a bounce-back performance. I think that's just the best way to classify this 133-125 win to start the West Coast swing for the Detroit Pistons. And honestly, if you're like me, I found myself watching this game a couple of times thinking, I can't figure this team out. I can't necessarily pinpoint what gets them to play at a high level, and at the same time diagnose what causes them to lose to teams like the Utah Jazz. And then the Suns are certainly not what they had hoped to be at 14-13 on the season. But man, you talk about a surprising road win for the Detroit Pistons, especially after losing to the actively tanking Utah Jazz. It really checks a lot of boxes for me, which was exciting stuff. I mean, you go up and down this lineup. Tim Hardaway Jr., 16 points. Jalen Duren, 17 points. Even when It was a hack of Jalen Duren, which is not something you see very often, but I made note. He went 2 for 2 from the foul line at that point late in the fourth quarter, where it was a 2-possession game. The Phoenix Suns elected to intentionally foul Jalen Duren. He goes to the line and knocks down both free throws. So some pro stuff right there. He had a couple of big offensive rebounds, and I was pretty tough on Jalen Duren after that lousy performance against the Utah Jazz. And again, I think a bounce back performance. And like I mentioned, with it being a shootout, there were times, especially in that third quarter, where it felt like the floor was starting to tip a little bit in favor of the Phoenix Suns. I mean, they were on fire to begin that third quarter, shot 83%, 10 of 12 to begin that frame, and the Pistons were still able to withstand the punches and outlast the Suns in that third frame, outscoring them 39-35. And then eventually, again, I keep using the phrase outlasting the Phoenix Suns because they were giving them their best shot with Kevin Durant and the rest of that. What at times, I mean, you look at the Phoenix Suns box score: 43 for Durant, Bradley Beal with 26, 19 for Tyus Jones. And again, I know it wasn't necessarily everything that the Phoenix Suns, no Devin Booker, for example. So it's not like they were at completely full strength. But, man, this is a big win for the Detroit Pistons, and it was a balanced team attack. And they shot the ball really well. I mean, you talk about 55% from the floor, nearly 49% from three-point land, 19 of 39 collectively. A really impressive effort. And a couple of notes that I wrote down. Again, we're going to break down Cade's performance in the second segment, but man, 7 of 9 from the free throw line, 3 of 8 from the long line, 9 of 19 from the floor. But that step back three-pointer he had in Kevin Durant's grill in the third, and then the dagger there down the stretch. Just 2 massive three-pointers from Cade Cunningham, an all-star-like performance. As always, we welcome you to enter the chat, get your comments in on this live Locked On Pistons postcast in a victorious. And if you stayed up late, we appreciate that because, hey, it's a busy day. It's a busy Saturday, but some late-night hoops on the West Coast. You know we've got you covered on Locked On Sports Detroit. So let's get to some of those comments. We start with Demetrius McNeil, a real one, and shout out to the real ones that tune in after each and every postcast as we join you for your post-game destination. Demetrius McNeil says Kevin Durant was the man tonight. Meanwhile, for the Pistons, that's one way to begin the road trip with a bang. Absolutely. Quentin Todd chiming in. I thought Cade was going to miss that three with less than 30 seconds left in the fourth. To be honest, I was waiting for KD to score if he missed. It did kind of have a funny feeling where you're thinking, man, this is a shootout. I hope the Pistons don't put the Suns in a position to get that last possession and have a chance to go out and win it with the shot, because Durant was hot. He was starting to have his way. But man, it was I think also kind of a testament to today's NBA, man. You just outscore teams, and sometimes that's not always the most appealing to watch for fans. I mean, it's no secret the NBA ratings are way down this year in comparison to the last several, to the point of it being historically down in terms of just overall ratings. So interesting stuff there if you want to get into that side of things as far as shooting too many threes. YouTube user says both teams shot well. Indeed they did, as we continue to examine this box score in a 133-125 win over the Phoenix Suns to move to 12-17 on the season, 7-9 on the road. So 7 road wins compared to the 5 home wins for the Detroit Pistons. But yeah, the Suns shot it extremely well as well. They were actually 57% from the floor at 45 of 78 and made 14 triples, 14 of 29, so 48%. So they even shot the ball better. There was a point, especially in that first half, where the Pistons were utilizing the defensive effort to turn into offense. What I mean by that, they were turning the Suns over and converting that into points on the offensive end. There was a time where the Suns had 11 turnovers, and the Pistons had converted that into 22 points off turnovers. So what does that do? It allows you to get out and run in transition. You don't have the constraints of a half-court offense, and allows you to execute a little bit more freely. And more often than not, you're going to get a high percentage shot in transition after a turnover. And that's what we saw there. So 19 total turnovers for the Phoenix Suns. So if you're listening to a Suns postcast, they would probably tell you that's what did us in. But overall, really impressive win for the Pistons. You feel really good about that. That's what I'm talking about. So if you're like me, again, you might not have this team figured out. I sure as heck don't. But there's some ups, there's some downs, and you take tonight as a significant up for the Detroit Pistons. The Lakers are up next. More on that in the final segment. But up next, we are going to go even deeper on that all-star performance. After all, all-star voting is open. And if you're not voting for Cade Cunningham, what the heck is wrong with you? We break down the Cade Cunningham performance next on a live Locked On Pistons postcast. Hey, this episode of the Locked On Pistons postcast is brought to you by Prize Picks. That's right. Prize Picks is the best way to play daily fantasy sports. All you have to do is download the Prize Picks app. It's the most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports, and it's real simple the way it works. All you do is pick more or less on a player's projected stat line, 2 to 6 players, and voila, you watch the winnings roll on in. And right now, you can make your holidays bigger and brighter with Prize Picks, the best way to get real money action while watching your favorite teams and your favorite sports. So win up to 1,000 times your money on Prize Picks. It's the best way to get in on the action. It's available in more than 30 states. And how about you join more than 8 million members? That's right. It continues to grow because it's the best and the most exciting. Prize Picks now offers MasterCard for quick and easy deposits into your accounts this sports season. Join now because this holiday season, Prize Picks is giving away 2 free picks in December. And they're giving away $30+ million in rewards during Pixmas. That's right. It's Pixmas. You've heard of Christmas. How about Pixmas? You can't get any better than that. Prize Picks is the best way to win real money this season. Which players are going off, which ones aren't. Make your picks in less than 60 seconds and turn your sports opinions into real money all season on Prize Picks. So download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 instantly after your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. Today's episode of the Locked On Pistons postcast is also brought to you by Rocket RX. If you're ready to boost your confidence and take control in the bedroom, Rocket RX has the solution. Imagine feeling more prepared and performing at your best. Rocket RX makes it simple and stress-free. Rocket RX offers FDA-approved treatments for ED at a lower cost than branded alternatives. No more uncomfortable doctor visits or pharmacy trips. Everything is delivered straight to your door in discreet, plain packaging. With Rocket RX, you'll get trusted care from a real U.S. clinical team, complete a quick 100% online consultation, and you could get your free prescription today. Visit rocketrx.com to get started now. It only takes 2 minutes. Right now, our listeners can get 40% off your first order when you use code LOCKEDONNBA. That's rocketrx.com, code LOCKEDONNBA for 40% off your first order. Terms and conditions apply. Rocket RX. Better sex made simple. And here we go, continuing on with a live Locked On Pistons postcast. Happy to have you along, especially after a victory for the Detroit Pistons. I know that makes everybody happy, and why wouldn't? Because there were a few times where I felt the court tipping a little bit in favor of the Phoenix Suns. You had Kevin Durant getting hot, but not so fast, my friends. The Detroit Pistons get it done and find a way to earn their 12th win of the season. And we'll see if this can spark a West Coast road trip. That's always tough to go on the road and perform at a consistent level. But tonight, a huge step in the right direction, which you love to see. Up next, the Pistons will play on Monday night, late night, against LeBron James and the LA Lakers. So that one will be a lot of fun. Make sure you join us for a live Locked On Pistons postcast following that one. Now, for Cade Cunningham, All-Star voting's open. He is an All-Star. Tremendous play tonight. And it wasn't just the points. It wasn't just the leadership. It wasn't just the assists. It was all of that. I mean, 28 points, 9 of 19 shooting, 7 of 9 from the foul line. But the way he's just taken that next step as a prolific scorer, as a game floor general, a guy that can control the pace of play great defense, and just do all the little things that helps this team win. Did I mention 13 dimes? So getting his teammates involved as well. He's asked to do so much. And I think sometimes, and you talk to a lot of, at least I do, when I talk to a lot of basketball savants that see the game in a different light, and honestly see more of the floor movement and pacing and the way Cade Cunningham is so absolutely integral to the success of the Detroit Pistons. It just, games like tonight continue to prove why he is so special and why he is, in fact, the glue, the face, the DNA, whatever you want to call it, everything, the core of this Detroit Pistons team. And they need Cade Cunningham, number 2, to be successful. +7 for the night, 28 points. And as I mentioned, the 13 assists, had the 2 steals as well. And overall, just a guy that brought it tonight for the Detroit Pistons. And he has to have it every night. That's another thing that I think gets lost upon some of the success when the Pistons have success. Is just how, I keep going back to how paramount Cade Cunningham is in the success of the Detroit Pistons, and tonight was no exception. So we're getting to witness a star in the making, and I wouldn't even say in the making. I think Cade Cunningham is a star. I think he's an all-star. I think he's a guy that proved, especially tonight, going toe-to-toe with Durant. And did their final lines look a little bit different? Absolutely. Durant with the 43 points and is going to obviously play a different position, if you will, with the way Durant stretches the floor and that sort of thing. He's not asked to be a point guard out there or anything of that nature, the way Durant is, or the way Cade Cunningham is. But when Durant was guarding Cade on multiple occasions, Cade lived up to the moment. In fact, he owned the moment. He showed no mercy, and the moment wasn't too big. And really, I think I go back to that dagger 3-pointer that he had under a minute to go. That's the type of finisher Cade Cunningham is becoming in the league, and really the type of swag, the type of aura that you need from the true face of the franchise, and even more than the face of the franchise, the leader of this franchise, because Lord knows it has been a long, long time since the Detroit Pistons have had a bona fide superstar like Cade Cunningham is turning into. So loved what I saw from him. And I think his guys feed off of that. And Malik Beasley in particular, that 3 that Beasley hit, that was a corner 3, the assist from Cade Cunningham, man, that was the time I made note. All right, down the stretch, it's becoming an intense, tight game. Who are going to be the guys? Who are going to be the guys that step up? And it was Cade Cunningham on multiple occasions, and then finding Malik Beasley there to help this Pistons team continue to put forth a winning effort on the road. So you love to see that from Cade Cunningham, and you love the type of all-star performance that he put forth tonight to help the Pistons take down the Phoenix Suns. Final score in this one, 133-125. Don't go anywhere. Studs and duds. You probably know some of my studs, but the duds might surprise you. That's coming up next on a live Locked On Pistons postcast on Locked On Sports Detroit. Hey, this episode of the Locked On Pistons postcast, it's brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sports book and the place to be when you get a hunch and you know you can make some cash. How about that? Get ready to tackle the NFL with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Right now, new customers can bet $5, get $150 in bonus bets if you win. Doesn't that sound good? Hopefully you had better bets than I did in college football today. Golly, it was a rough day. I thought I saw some upsets coming. Not so fast, my friends. SMU gets blown out. Clemson loses, although I did have Texas in that one, but they didn't cover 14.5. And the Tennessee Volunteers talked all that talk, and I was guilty of it. I thought they were going to beat Ohio State. They didn't. But hey, that's all right, because we can win tomorrow, right? We got NFL all day tomorrow. Put a little money on the Detroit Lions to win and cover. I don't even know what it is, but you get the idea. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL, and it's all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats. You can view live play-by-play and so much more. And it's all on the same page right where you place your bets. Doesn't get any better than that. So just visit FanDuel.com and join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Hey, my friends, listen up. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, we wrap it up, my friends, with some studs and duds. And I'm looking forward to this because we spent a lot of time with the Cade Cunningham performance, because of course he was a stud tonight, but I'm not going to reiterate everything we just talked about, but we get it, right? Cade Cunningham helped will this team to victory. Malik Beasley worthy of a stud tonight because yes, it wasn't the most clean and efficient night shooting the basketball, but man, you talk about how much he helped this team win. Some of the timely three-pointers that he knocked down, 5 of 11 shooting, and a couple of impressive threes down the stretch that really helped this team. But my duds, and I don't want to spend too much time on this, but it has been a long time since I've seen a hack-a-shack defense performed and implemented in that point of the game where you've got Jalen Duren in a 2-possession game wondering, running around getting fouled by Mason Plumlee and going to the stripe and knocking it down. So I thought that was an interesting decision from the Phoenix Suns to the point of questioning. Now, I'm not saying that's what cost this team the game by any means, but just a very, very puzzling decision. Now, I do have to give a nice studly nod to Kevin Durant because he was a stud tonight. I mean, season high 43 points. Got to give him a lot of credit there. 11-11 from the foul line. Very impressive. 4 of 9 from the long line and 14 of 26 overall. But there were some times he was cooking, and I thought it would be dangerous time. But it does, in fact, turn out to be a victory for the Detroit Pistons. And even though Kevin Durant got hot, he did, in fact, it was, in fact, in a losing effort. He comes up short. Now, as far as some of the duds for the Pistons, I almost want to do a double studly effort because it's gone too long without mentioning him. Simone Fontecchio, man, best game of the season for him. 10 points. It wasn't a lot, but it was timely. Again, 2 timely 3-pointers, 2 of 4 from the long line. And this is the kind of contributions you expected from Fontecchio. And it feels like tonight was one of the first nights where you walk away from that game thinking, all right, he really brought it. And that helped this team win. So a studly performance from Fontecchio. You gotta love that overall. I mentioned Malik Beasley with 18 off the bench, but all 5 starters in double figures, albeit Tobias Harris with 10 just barely got in there, but plus 11 for the evening for Tobias Harris. So when he was on the floor, it wasn't a detriment to the team's success like it had been against the Utah Jazz and in several other games. this season. Same with Tim Hardaway, plus 13, 16 points. Didn't do a lot, but just helped contribute to this win tonight. So overall, I'm really, really pleased, obviously, with the 133-125 win. It was a different type of win for the Pistons. This year and years for sure, years past, the old shootout doesn't bode too well for the Detroit Pistons typically, but tonight it did, and they get the road trip started on the right foot. So up next, the Pistons continue the West Coast road trip, and they will take on the Lakers. That's a Monday night game, and it is a late one, 7:30 Pacific time, so 10:30 Eastern time. But hey, stay up late with us. It'll be a good time. And then off until Thursday, December 26th, also on the West Coast, taking on the Sacramento Kings, continuing on the West Coast against the Nuggets on Saturday, December 28th, before we start the new year at home at the friendly confines of the LCA, taking on the Orlando Magic Wednesday night at 7 on New Year's Day. But New Year's Day, that's January 1st. You get what I'm saying, but it's in the evening. All right, there we go. We worked through that. Way to go, me. But thanks, everyone, for tuning in. It's always a pleasure to be on the air, especially after a Pistons victory. It's a huge bounce back, a road win to get the road trip started off the right foot. An all-star performance from Cade Cunningham. They withstand Kevin Durant's season-high 43 points, and they earned their 12th win of the season, 133-125. Hey, I want to remind you that your favorite podcast now has a daily newsletter. What gets better than that? Well, it's free, my friends. It's your one stop for ultimate team and league coverage, and it's delivered right to your inbox. It's the Locked On Pistons daily newsletter. Sign up for free now at LockedOnDaily.com. That's LockedOnDaily.com, and start your day with the all-new free Locked On Pistons newsletter. We'll have a Locked On Lions postcast for you tomorrow after the Lions take on the Chicago Bears. This is your post-game destination. Live shows after Detroit sports events. What gets better than that? Nothing. So make sure you subscribe. Follow me on Twitter at Jake_Rietma. Always tweeting about Detroit sports. Formerly with 97.1 The Ticket, now with Locked On Sports Detroit. And excited for the Locked On Postcast initiative on Locked On Sports Detroit. So like the video, make sure you subscribe, and we'll continue to bring you all this loaded free content. Check out the Locked On Pistons daily show with Koo. I love listening to it. You'll enjoy it as well. Pistons beat the Suns on a Saturday night to begin the road trip, 133-125, the final. Have a wonderful night, and we'll see you tomorrow on Locked On Sports Detroit.